Welcome to Monterey by Matt at the 2025 DGA Awards. We're looking forward to talking to the director nominees. At what point in writing the script did you decide you're going to do the perspective, the character perspective is the way you're going to shoot and direct the story?
Yeah, right away. It was the first idea that came to mind. And I kind of credit my co-writing partner, who at this time wasn't even writing with me, for not shooting down the idea. Because I read the book, she reads the book, and I'm like, I'm thinking, like, POV would be really cool, blah, 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 blah. And she was like, oh, interesting. And we kept going as opposed to being like, that's a strange thing, which would have consequences I couldn't even predict. So shout out Jocelyn Barnes.
So the first challenge is with your DP, Joe Mofre, wonderful job. How did you guys create the visual language to pull this off? Because this is a major technology shift. There's a lot of different style. What was the process working with him to kind of establish your own production rules?
Yeah. Well, I think I was lucky to have essentially done an early version of this in the first film that I made, Hell County This Morning, This Evening. So I came in with like very, relatively strict rules, like, long lens, shallow focus, camera as an extension of consciousness. And then I think having a really rigid entry point allows for the idea to get nuanced and for it to get to the point where the camera's actually like feeling something, it's like touching something. And leave it to Jomo to basically invent rigs that can handle 6K camera with as close to the body to move like the human head, and figuring out how to light scenes in the way in which we could get that emotional resonance. Yeah, the collaboration, couldn't have asked for more from him.
I think it really paid off because we're not a spectator. The audience is not a spectator in this movie. We actually feel like we're feeling what the characters are feeling, especially in the White House scene, the torture scene.
Yeah.
How did you want the audience to feel and experience? Because we didn't see a lot, but we felt every moment of the boys being tortured.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. We wanted them to, the audience, who is the character, to just be in a space of both reflection and experience, where you're kind of having a meta-consciousness when you're going through trauma, but you're also abstracted. And that like strange constellation of things is psychologically rich, right? Like that's just something human beings, it's a coping mechanism. So we wanted to just toy with some of those ideas and not do the easy thing, which is just show you what happened as if that's the worst part. Mostly it's what happens after, the rest of the consequences of it.
Now, my final question, my favorite scene is Hattie's scene when she gets rejected from seeing Elwood and devastated, but she sees that Turner's in pain and hugs him.
Yeah.
Still able to, realize someone else is actually in more pain and hug him. What was your approach working with them? It was also teaching the actors a new way of acting because they're not used to this kind of style.
Yeah. I love that. I love that scene too. I think I give all of the credit to the actors because we didn't talk much about the shooting process. We talked a lot about the characters. And, POV is in the script. It was imagined that way. All the images are written that way. But for an actor, like, you don't really think about how it will be captured. Yeah. And so on the day, it's like, I would like for you to look into the camera and do X, Y, and Z. And then they kind of have to drop all of the stuff they didn't talk before, be vulnerable and do their thing. And so everyone stepped up.
Well, it was a great film. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, Brady, we'll start with you. This film was a unique film because you weren't on site. What was the process of helping Slava, directing from off-site on Zoom?
We were separated by 6,000 miles. We didn't speak the same language. They were in a war zone, the largest conflict in Europe since World War II. So everything was working against us, but we connected through the universal power of art. We were able to use drawings, share paintings and photographs, and use that as a language that, despite us not being in the same place, we could collaborate in an incredibly meaningful way. And Slava, as a master visual storyteller, was able to really channel his instincts into cinema. It was like picking up a new paintbrush, so to speak.
How challenging was for you being so objective, but while you're in a war zone shooting a film?
Oh, we were never focused on devastation, on violence. We were focused on beauty, on our culture, because our culture is main target of these aggressions, and we lose so much object of art and so much artists, and it was completely main our goal to bring hope and inspiration, because even from the center of this devastation, because regular civilian people are ready to defend their culture and develop culture even in such dark times.
That's why I love the amazing movie about it. It showed the real people and the real impact on it. So how much as an artist did it help you because of the porcelain, they're amazing, the porcelain work. How did that help you actually shoot the film and tell a story as a director?
Oh, it was, we find in our figurines, in Anna's painting on these figurines. Anni is my wife and partner in this movie and in all our life and in our art. Her painting bring us many metaphors. Her artistic language is very metaphoric, and this metaphor came from her painting to animated parts of our movie and to how we filmed all this view.
I'd like to say our cinematographer, Andrei Stefanov, is an oil painter. He'd never used a camera before, but he knew where to put his canvas. He understood composition and light, and there's these universal aspects of art that allow us to connect no matter what is between us.
Shōgun. Okay, so you're taking on a pretty big project.
Yes, yeah.
Obviously directing the pilot, you have a lot of responsibility and pressure to set the visual tone for the series and the style. What was your process of trying to establish the tone you wanted, as the directing style for the rest of the series?
So I think, I was very lucky. Justin and Rachel had written these incredible scripts that had a sort of tone baked into them, that there was a very sort of authentic but modern sensibility in it, that it had the feel, it had a little bit of feel of the book as well. The book, for its time, had a very modern, it was really immersive. It took you into that time in Japan in sort of a timeless way. And I think Justin and Rachel had put that into the script. And I think when I was pitching on it, my attitude was, what would be the Shogun I'd wanted to make? I read the book and I remember thinking it would make an incredible feature or TV show. And I think, I tried to pitch a very modern take on that. Something that was incredibly immersive, and felt striking. And, luckily FX and Justin and Rachel were on board for that.
The one thing I love about the series is you give time for scenes and characters to breathe and develop. It never feels rushed.
Yeah.
Do you like that, the pacing of it, where you got to get to really explore character in a way that other series don't allow you?
Yeah. No, I love that. And like I say, that was very much implicit in the scripts, that they had this incredible rhythm to them. And I think what was also really interesting is the scripts had a different rhythm for Blackthorn as they did for Toranaga. Right. So the Japanese world in the opening episodes has a different rhythm. There's one that's sort of stately and moves in a different movement. And then on Blackthorn's side, there is this sort of frenetic pace. And I think that was really interesting to play with in camera, and how do we capture that feel in performance and camera and editing. And I know, even after I left, the editing process was really about that rhythm, not least in the first one, but as they went through, so how do you find that pace, let moments to breathe, let moments to live with them, and then still have it sort of, kinetic enough for the audience to be brought forward.
Now, we know Anna's a terrific actress, Lady Morocco. We love the character. What is special, do you think, about working with her that she brings, as an actress to the show?
I mean, look, Anna was incredible from her audition onwards. I remember 1 minute into Anna's audition, I was texting the showrunner saying we'd found Mariko. I was texting Justin going, that's it, we found it. You're going to get these tapes in 10 minutes, and these are amazing. And she was incredible. She was so intelligent, so thoughtful, and that is a very, very difficult part. That is a part where, it could be played just very austere, and instead Anna brought this warmth and fierceness and intelligence and smarts, and it was phenomenal. And I've got to say, as a director, it's a bit of a gift, because truly you're very gently guiding some things, but honestly, it's all Anna.
You're hitting record on the camera.
Literally, you're pressing record, and I would say every take was awesome. And what's incredible as well is when you have people like Hiro and Anna and Tad, when you have those people involved, they are so smart that everyone else's game is raised. So every other actor and actress, when they are in a scene with that person, everyone brought their A game, and everyone brought their A game. I've never worked on a show with such an incredible cast. The show was hugely challenging for authenticity and time and the scale we were doing, but the actual performances, it was a joy, and very rarely do you feel the emotion behind the camera because you're part of the process. But in this case, I genuinely choked up sometimes, and it was phenomenal.
What was your gut reaction when you first read the script of your episode?
I was blown away. I think I was mesmerized. I was excited. I was nervous. I really loved the story. Also, having read the other episodes, I saw there was a chance to explore a gaze and a feminine universe that was so powerful but yet so behind the scenes. So I felt very excited.
Now, one of the challenges I'm assuming is you had multiple storylines and flashbacks. How was navigating all that, in your episode?
Well, it was great because Justin and Rachel, they gave us a lot of freedom and they were very confident on trusting us and whatever our vision was. So I wanted to treat the flashback as its own little story, like a little short film. We even changed lenses for that. So they gave us the support, and it was great. It was the flashback is its own little story and universe that lives within Shogun, but it pays off, and it's the reason and it would have consequences later down the road, thematically and in terms of plot. So it was beautiful. I really enjoyed the experience.
Yeah, one of the things I love about the Shogun, many things, is that the show has time to breathe story-wise. It doesn't feel ever rushed. Is that something you like, that the pacing, where you can kind of really explore character, but you don't feel like you have to get to the next thing?
Yes, I think that's something we, as the audience, because it's different, not TV and film. Film, you go and pay for a ticket, and you give your time and your money to a filmmaker, to take your time, and you sit there, and the lights go out, and it's like he has you. But TV it's a communal experience because they're inviting you into their home in a way. So it's I think it's a bit trickier, to keep the attention there, because they can go to the bathroom, they can play pause and just do whatever. So I guess one thing that we were trying to do is, like, I remember Justin telling me a lot this, like, grab them by the shoulders, make them watch, make them care. And I think it's something we all try to achieve, and it paid off.
My favorite sequence is when Lady Mariko was trying to escape.
Yes.
And the pain of her, the fierceness, but the pain of her being trapped.
Yeah.
What was your process working with Anna to try to create that such a pivotal moment?
Well, Anna is an unbelievable talent, and she that episode had been coming for a long time, and she couldn't have been more prepared. Meaning, it was an episode that stood unique in all of the 10 in terms of her, basically her character arc. Sort of landed in that episode in such a way in which she had to be so completely firm and convicted in her mission, but also we had to know her humanity. We had to understand what she was experiencing, and so that was the thing for her coming into that episode was, how does my vulnerability in certain sequences come through while the strength of conviction that I have is effectively the overriding theme. So we got a chance to rehearse and work together a lot, but that sequence in particular of escaping the castle was something that we rehearsed, and she was so completely ready that it was really easy to do, honestly, because it was so well laid out. I mean, it was a lot to get everybody in the right places and make sure that the emotion and the character and the violence played in the right ways, but it was a complicated sequence.
It's a roller coaster ride through the episode because she goes through as much. Like, we have the suicide moment.
Yeah.
How did you want to approach that? Because you give us some hope, actually, after that moment.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's a really beautiful part of the writing of that episode is that it is truly a roller coaster of emotion, which meant for me as a director that I lean in as hard as I can to each of those moments, knowing that I can calibrate the level of intensity editorially speaking. So we went all the way with seppuku, we went all the way with escaping the castle, we went all the way with escaping the castle. So, and then in editorial, we had the good fortune with wonderful editors to be able to kind of like regulate how hard we were going to hit each individual moment.
And obviously, how difficult was the day the explosion? How was that emotionally as a director to direct that?
Incredibly difficult. Like a lot of things, it landed at the end of the schedule. There was a lot of people in that scene. There was a lot that had to happen in that scene. And so for me, the hard part was like being able to like on a normal day of shooting, which this landed on a Tuesday or whatever, right? To be able to sort of like truly be in that moment and sort of feel it. But I think Anna had a lot of really strong feelings about how to do it. And so that was great to have her support. But in addition to that, we did a bunch of different sort of interesting camera tricks and things like that in order to make that sequence work. So it did last over a few days, but it was quite an intense moment.
As our final question, generic question about Shōgun. One thing I love about the show, it lets the characters breathe a little.
Yeah.
It never feels rushed. It's something you enjoy as a director. Like, you don't have to get like 20 big action sequences done. It's more of like the character growth, and then the action is part of it.
Absolutely, that's my favorite part too. And I think that like it being a historical epic and having the sort of like contextual historical information sort of as a fellow storyteller in the story, that lends itself a lot of the times to be able to sort of like live in those moments, because there's so much to see and experience that the characters' stories can really kind of like find their way into the scenery. They can find their way into like, so to me, what I love about it, and the reason why I think the pacing was an important thing, because believe me, I wasn't looking to slow things down. I was always looking to keep things paced and entertaining, but we regulated that in editorial as much as we could, sort of like let things breathe when they needed to, and that's incredibly gratifying for a director to have to do that and not constantly be rushing through everything. So I love Shōgun because of that. It afforded me that opportunity.
All right, so we're going to talk a little Penguin.
Let's talk about
All right, so we've never really seen Arkham Asylum in any of the Batman movies or series. It's always referred to. What was it like being able to explore the darkness of it and actually create the supervillain?
This was one of the, when I read this script and I realized I was going to get to do Sophia Falcone's origin story, and that Kristen Milioti was going to play this, that blew my mind. And then as we approached Arkham, it was with great respect, actually, because we know that people have imagined so many things. So we started with the corridors that were seen in Matt Reeves' The Batman, and we'd seen a glimpse of a cell, but that's all we'd ever seen, and we built it out from there. And Kleena, our production designer, did a brilliant job. And the thing that I really realized, because where we really see it the most, or get a sense of how torturous and terrible it is in the mess hall.
Yep.
And so when I got my background actors, and they all were there, I did what I always do, but specific to this, and I told them, you are the people who are going to make this real. We all have a little madness inside of ourselves. We have all considered killing somebody or had that feeling sometime in our life. And we're going to represent. So you don't need to act it out. You just need to be there, and each of you personally. And those women rose to the occasion and just, they were fabulous. And I know Kristen has talked about it in interviews, and I saw it happen to her. By making them real and alive and consistent, it really helped her to drop into her first time walking in, her second time coming in, and finally killing that woman in there. Yeah.
And obviously you pay it off with her wiping out her family. How, I don't want to say the word fun, killing so many people, but as a director, it must have been being able to take that story arc and ending there must have been really a great gift.
I mean, the first scene that I shot when I got there, because I got there early because they had discovered that Colin could only work 2, maybe 3 days in a row, and then you had to be shooting something else. So I needed to start shooting episode 4 while Craig was still doing 1, 2, and 3 in order to give Colin some time off. And so the first scene I shot was where she wakes up in the doctor's office having realized all of this, and at the end of it, she says, "You're right. I need a change." And then the next moment we see her is coming in that iconic yellow dress, which Helen Huang came up with, and Jean Harlow gone wrong, right? You know, talking the meatball in her mouth.
Yep.
And then, we don't know what's going on. And then it's the morning after, and Sarah Vaughan's singing, and the montage of her skipping over dead bodies with a gas mask on. Fantastic, so much fun. And Kristen, I'm so glad she got that Critics' Choice Award last night.
Yeah.
So deserved. And she just brought so much life and joy to the work and to that moment, right?
20th anniversary of 40-Year-Old Virgin.
That's right.
Yeah.
Big one.
So looking back for you, what was the biggest challenge for you writing the script? What was the thing that, it took you a while to kind of like, I've got to get it in my head?
You're just terrified the first time you direct. So, I was writing to direct, and, back then you think, if this goes badly, I'll never be allowed to do it ever again. So it's a different level of pressure first time out. In terms of what we were writing, we were just having a blast, and I don't think we ever were really concerned. We really liked the idea, and I loved what Steve was doing. And Steve's an amazing writer, so
Yeah.
I thought even if I'm doing a bad job, Steve's doing a good job.
The thing I liked about good comedy is really a good drama at its heart. We all can relate to being insecure trying to date, the feeling. Is that something you always want to keep, where obviously the scenes are funny, but you want to keep the humanity because we all can kind of relate to what he's going through?
Yeah, we just thought we wanted it to be realistic. We didn't want to do like some ridiculous character that was a real thing. And I had met people, in that situation that it was really more about, wanting love, wanting connection, and being scared.
What was about this story that really grabbed you and wanted you to direct?
I just felt like it was an important story to get out there. Like, we haven't had a mainstream movie about a kid with a disability played by a kid with that same disability, and that was something that I felt was really important and that I wanted to do. And it's such a beautiful book. It's beloved, it's taught in classrooms, and it's so many kids that I know's favorite book. And I just felt like it needed to be out there, and they'd been trying to get the movie made for 10 years, and so I felt lucky enough to get the job, and I was like, great, it's just something that I believed in. It was a cause that felt important to me.
Now, you mentioned the book. It's a beloved book, but as we know, book readers are very passionate. If you change something they don't like, or you do something there,
So far, I've been really lucky that the people who are big fans of the book have said they love the movie just as much, so I'm like, great. The one thing I get sometimes from kids is, why didn't I include Butterscotch, the dog? And I just shuffle that off. I say, talk to Daniel Stiepelman, the guy who wrote the script, and blame him. So
We all love dogs. All right, so then what was the process of working with Phoebe? She's terrific. She's wonderful.
Yeah.
What was the process of working with her?
So she'd never acted before, so for me as a director, it was actually really freeing, because I was like, okay, great, I can just tell her this is the process. I can essentially say my process is this is how it's going to go, and she didn't have any sort of preconceived notions about how she should do it or how it should go, or when I worked with this other director, that and sometimes I think kids, particularly if they've done a lot of acting, they can sometimes have one certain way that they like to do things, and but with Phoebe that wasn't the case. She was so daring and brave and just willing to try anything, and I couldn't admire her more. She was really vulnerable when she was afraid to be vulnerable, and I think that gift that she gave the audience and other children with disabilities who now get to look at her on the screen and go, oh, I could do that, that could be me, I think she gave everybody an incredible gift by doing that.
Now, I know every scene is precious to you, but is there one scene in particular you're proud of, something, maybe a small scene, an intimate moment, something you would want viewers to take from, oh, look at that, that was something that I really liked?
I mean, I love the whole movie, but I would say that, the scene when, in the beginning, her fish jumps out of the bowl and her father assumes that she knocked into it, and when she comes and she gets her Medi-Talker, her AAC device, and she tells him the truth that Ollie jumped out of the bowl. And I think for any parent to recognize that, oh, I misunderstood my child. I misunderstood what they were saying or what they needed. And I think that moment is really powerful. And my husband says he cries every single time he watches that part. So
It's my favorite scene. Well, thank you so much for joining us.